Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Motivational Millennial podcast. Today we are talking with singer-songstress Maria Z, who I met in Miami on the music industry scene, and it's been amazing to follow her career coming up on YouTube to LA to doing shows and collaborating with amazing artists. She is a talented powerhouse, and we had an awesome conversation covering music and dealing with people in your life who might not believe in your vision and how to change your mindset for success. So we really are excited to share the interview with you. Be sure to join us afterwards for a slightly extended after show, but we hope
it got good to us.
it was very thought-provoking, rich conversation with Maria and really prompted a bit of a epic after show, but we hope you'll stick around for that. And in the meantime, enjoy this talk with Maria Z.
Woohoo!
Hello, welcome to the Motivational Millennial podcast, where we talk with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living life with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Blake Brandis.
And I'm Ivy LeClaire.
Our motivational millennial guest today is Maria Z. Maria is known for her powerful yet heartfelt voice, delivering a fusion of soulful pop and R&B. Maria was recognized by Guitar Center as one of the top 10 singer-songwriters in the country, and her music has been featured on national TV networks such as CNN, ABC, and Fox. Most notably, her version of Unthinkable was danced to on the TV show So You Think You Can Dance. Additionally, Maria has performed alongside musical legends such as Babyface, Neo, Fantasia, and Earth, Wind & Fire. Maria, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are excited to get to talk to you and dive deep into your world today. We'd love to hear first what you're up to at the moment and what you love about it.
Oh, what am I up to? The question everybody asks, especially out here in LA. I'm up to several things. I think being in this industry, we kind of do a lot all at once. The main thing I'm focusing on really is finishing my project, a collection of some original material, original songs that mean a lot to me. I'm also songwriting for other artists and just kind of being as creative as possible in between.
Awesome. And how did you get into music in the first place?
I've always been obsessed with music ever since I was literally the youngest girl in the world. I would watch anything that had to do with music. I would read anything that had to do with music. That was the era of the Mickey Mouse Club being on the Disney Channel too. So any show that was similar to that had my full attention. I had my mom subscribe me to Rolling Stone and Billboard when I was like 12. I don't know if that's normal. But I was just always interested in anything that had to do with music.
And how did you start performing and thinking about music as an actual career?
Well, I actually started performing in kindergarten. Again, back to being young. Actually, first grade was the first time I was on stage. The school was having a talent show, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I know I wanted to perform because that was kind of like the cool thing to do. So my brother suggested singing. I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll sing. So ever since then, I was just always performing and doing all of that, but I never really took it seriously. Like, I never realized I was capable of pursuing it on a professional level, probably until this whole technological boom, of social media, to be quite honest, because I was raised in an area where being in the entertainment industry was kind of unreachable and was unheard of. It wasn't something that you pursue. So when I realized that it was possible, that's when I really started taking it seriously. Like, wow, I can really do this, because I didn't have stage parents, and I didn't know that you could go out to LA and do things or, take that old conventional route. I had no idea. No one was there to support me with that dream and to tell me that anything was possible.
And what was that moment when you realized that it was possible?
I think that moment was kind of in the MySpace era, where we were able to upload our own music to our page. And I realized how kind of quote unquote simple it was. More, however, not that it was simple, but that it was possible. Like, you didn't have to be so different. You didn't have to be someone who, had money or had this or had that. There was nothing that separated me from the people that were doing it.
It can be so empowering when you have those moments where what you think is possible totally shifts and opens up, and all of these opportunities and possibilities open up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're usually raised with the ideals of our parents, in our surrounding environment. And typically that's a very safe kind of nest of just do what you can, be the best, but do what you can, go to college, get a degree, get a job, get married. So especially in this era with entrepreneurship, where it's really become this massive thing, I think that a lot of our mentality has changed and shifted, and people understand that anything really is possible, especially with the internet. I mean, there still is a huge majority of people who don't see that they can do what they want to do. But once that mental shift occurs, there's absolutely no going back.
And do you feel like your self-confidence grew over time? Or did you always just have this vision of this is how it's going to work, and no matter how long it takes, I'm going to pursue it?
To be honest, I was always super confident. It's funny because when you speak to people who are in the music industry as well, we are kind of overconfident in the beginning, and I think that that's kind of the magic of it. So the first song I ever recorded, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. It's going to be on the radio tomorrow. We're going to take over the world. Like, we really have this vision in the beginning that we're just going to be everywhere on MTV, BET, on every news station, every radio station. We really have that enthusiasm, but that's kind of the magic of it. And I love that. And of course, the longer you're in it, a little bit of that fades, a little bit more realism kind of sets in. Like, okay, we're not going to be everywhere right away. But you still are determined. I'm still determined. You realize and you mature and you come to terms with the fact that, you know what, this is a process and I need to grow, and I'm not where I thought I might be. I'm not in a place where I'm ready. In the beginning, you think you deserve it all. You think you're ready for it all. But throughout the journey, you realize that you have to overcome specific obstacles to grow stronger, to understand your craft. It really is true what they say, like, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
So in what ways did you have to grow so that you were able to achieve the biggest dream you've accomplished so far?
So many ways. One of the first most important ways for me was what we were talking about, basically shifting my mentality, in that I had to tell myself, okay, I'm worth this and I'm capable of this. Because for such a long time, I was surrounded with people who made me feel like what I wanted to achieve was not possible, or it was so far-fetched. And also this mentality of like, you have to just accept life the way it is, and life is hard, and whatever. I feel like a lot of us are raised in that sense, and there are some people who aren't, and that's great for them. But it definitely was a struggle in the beginning to have to fight all of those people around me who kind of, make you feel like, oh, that's great, good for you, good luck. I mean, do you have a backup plan? Oh, surely you're only going to be doing this for like a few years, right? I mean, everything I could think of, I still hear to this day. And it's funny because, I heard an interview with J-Lo actually, and she was talking about how when she was actually succeeding, people were still telling her, oh, good luck with that. She's like, I'm already on.
I'm J-Lo. I'm Jimmy from the block.
Right. I'm doing it. Like, what do you mean? But that's the fear in everybody, the fear that everyone is raised with and nurtured with, and the concept in their minds that greatness isn't possible. So it's a constant battle to be great. It really is. You have to remind yourself every day, and you have to understand it and live it. It's a lifestyle. And for the most part, I feel that way. But of course, I'm human. So there are some days when I look at myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm down today. I'm weak today. I'm confused today. But I think what makes somebody great is going through those ups and downs and going through the confusing times and maybe allowing some of those words to affect you. They don't affect me as much anymore. But, sometimes we slip and we allow those things to affect us a little bit. But being great is being able to turn all of that off at the end of the day and starting over again the next day.
How do you bounce back from those days when you are feeling down? Like, what do you tell yourself, or what do you do to help recover?
I just allow myself the time sometimes. It really depends how down I am. For example, if I'm just really worn out and exhausted, I might be more susceptible to just being just a little tired of it all. But I allow myself now the time to just say, okay, let me just take a second, rest. Because I know once I rest and I get a clear mind and I usually get some mac and cheese, I'm good.
Mac and cheese, a crucial element of
absolutely
life success.
Know your comfort food.
But I think it all comes down to just being patient with yourself and understanding. I mean, I know without a doubt there's absolutely nothing else in the world I would rather do. There's nothing else in the world that makes me as happy as music. Like, music is my favorite thing. It really is my biggest passion. So no matter what, it's like a relationship, it's the biggest relationship you can have in your life. You're going to fight. You're going to want to cry. You might get mad and want to walk away. But at the end of the day, you love that crazy thing so much, like, you're not going anywhere.
That's awesome. And which of your accomplishments so far on this path have surprised you the most?
That's an interesting question. I really have not, I don't know if this is going to come off a specific way, but I haven't really been surprised by anything as of yet. Because, to be quite honest, I've planned for everything. So kind of when I've achieved specific things, I knew that's what I wanted my outcome to be. Now, whether or not that outcome arrived is a different story, but the fact that it did, I'm not specifically surprised by them. The things that surprised me in this industry the most, and throughout this journey the most, have been so far when I meet specific people, maybe randomly, or if I meet someone I've always looked forward to meeting and they're a great person and I'm surprised by that and I'm excited by that. I think that the surprising moments are really the small moments.
Have there been any particular collaborations or meetings that you've just come out of it thinking, wow, that was incredible?
Yes. One of my favorite, quote unquote, incredible moments was actually when I was performing at a festival where I was opening for Fantasia. I arrived that day and everyone was like, oh, there you are. Fantasia's looking for you. And I was like, oh, me? Okay. And then as I was, walking more backstage, a few other people along the way were like, oh, there you are, Fantasia was looking for you. And I was like, wait a second, like, she was looking for me, what does she want? I performed, and then, she got on stage and killed it. She's an incredible performer. And then I went backstage, and I didn't think I would see her, but she was rushing off to her car, and I just, kind of yelled out, like, hey, good show. And she's like, oh my gosh, come here, Maria, come here. And it was so incredible because everyone was kind of fighting for her attention. She just got off stage. We had like paparazzi there, and then her team that was kind of escorting her to the car and asking her, to hurry so they could go to the next location. And yet she ignored all of that to kind of just spend some time with me and encourage me. She pulled me aside and said, listen, I really believe in you. Please don't give up. There are going to be people along the way who are going to discourage you, but don't ever let anything affect you. The conversation kind of went something along those lines. And I was just so shocked at her kindness and her encouragement because, someone at that level didn't have to stop, an up-and-coming artist to encourage them and tell them how special they were. So it's moments like that that really kind of make the journey worthwhile. And those are the surprising things to me. That to me is an accomplishment in its own, because it's getting that cosign from my peers, and it's getting that validation through God. Honestly, like, she's a very spiritual person, and I really felt that God was using her to speak to me, because that was a very crucial point in my life. That was before I moved to LA. And so it's like little moments like that kind of make it all worthwhile.
That's a really incredible story, and I'm so grateful that you had that opportunity and had that conversation. How do you think that it shaped your life or your view of what's possible from having that conversation?
Well, I just look at someone like Fantasia, who's been through so much, and she's really had to fight to get where she is. So I know that she knows the feeling of pain. She knows the feeling of struggle. So to hear those words from her is so much different than to hear it from someone who's kind of been nurtured throughout the whole process and may or may not have had, the financial support and whatnot. Because a lot of people may view the artistic journey, specifically mine, and maybe say like, oh, she's doing what she's doing because she has money, because she has a team, or because she's signed, or, everyone kind of has their own assumption. But the truth of it is I've had to work really hard, and I'm still working very hard, and I've done it all on my own. I haven't received money from anyone. I've worked hard for every single penny that I've used for my project and for just everyday living. So when you see someone who's kind of been through that telling you those things, you're like, you know what, I'm good. She sees the greatness in me. And of course you see the greatness in yourself, but in moments like that, when someone else sees the greatness in you as well, you're on the right path.
And someone who's had a similar experience and journey as you too. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Will you share a story about a significant challenge that you faced so far and what it was like for you to overcome that challenge?
Every day is a challenge. Firstly, I just want to throw that out there. Waking up and doing what you love, not doing something that's maybe a little easier is actually, hard work. It's fun, and I'm thankful and grateful for it, but to do what you actually love takes a different type of strength, because, like we said, you're going to be battling different things every single day. I've had a lot of personal challenges, and I think that's kind of what's been the hardest, maybe. Professionally, every day is a challenge. A new way to be creative and figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to put these goals that I've lined out into action? What are my habits going to be every day that are going to get me there? Who am I going to reach out to that could potentially help the situation? Who can I help in the journey as well? Because I think that's one thing that I've learned throughout this journey, that it's not just about helping yourself or finding people that can help you or aligning yourself with the right situations. It's also about seeing how your gifts and your skills could inspire and change and hopefully help others who are on the same path. So I like to, if I see up and coming artists who are kind of in the first stage of what I've already been through, I definitely like to give them advice and just tell them what I know, because I didn't have people doing that for me. And I think that is what makes all of this worthwhile. So many people hold that information as if they're doing good. They're just afraid to let it go. But at the end of the day, nobody is you.
Yeah, and meaning that whenever you're sharing your challenges or tips or advice that you have, it's not as though you're creating more competition for yourself or something. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid to share their resources or afraid to share the knowledge. And of course, it is good to keep a few of, the cards in your deck, but at the same time, does it really matter that much? We're all here to help each other, and you were given what you were given, and what is for you is for you. But back to the challenges, yeah, I think most of them have been personal, losing specific people in my life, having, maybe family issues, financial struggles and whatnot. But those are the type of things that have really strengthened me.
I'm glad you brought back up the personal struggle, because in reality, particularly when you're actively pursuing something that you love as a career, we're all one whole human, and personal and career and all of these things are like all intertwined and related, and they're not like really separate. So personal challenges that you have had definitely inform who you are, your passion, your career, all of that. And if you would be willing to share one of those personal challenge stories, in an effort to provide that resource and guidance to some of our listeners, we would love that. If you're willing to share that with us.
Right. Well, see, the problem with personal challenges with what I do specifically is that it really is one and the same, in the sense that, you know, some people, they're told, oh, leave your problems at home. You have an issue with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or a wife, but as soon as you step in here, you clock in here, you know, you're focused on the job. That's kind of opposite from what I do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like any problem that I go through is fuel. It's necessary. I have to use that for my craft. And so it's a form of therapy, which I'm honestly so thankful for. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have music, child. I would be like, I don't even know. But it's really been so helpful. But at the same time, it really forces you to focus on the issue, I think in a positive way, because you really get to the root of it since you have to think about it so much. And I think I'm able to understand the problems on a deeper level than most people take the time to. For example, you asked me to share something personal. So one of the problems, well, I wouldn't really call it a problem, it's a blessing. But, you know, I was in a relationship and that relationship ended, and it was very difficult for me because I really loved the person with my whole heart. I've loved the person for a very long time. But, you know, instead of doing what most people suggested I do, oh my gosh, like go out, find someone else, whatever they say, you know, I was in the studio and I was talking about it, and I was writing different songs. Like I could write 1 million songs from one breakup, right? Because you really have to analyze each perspective. It's kind of like, and it's also the process. Like first your songs are like, oh my gosh, I love you. Tell me you still love me too. And then, you know, they go through the stages of coping. What are the stages of coping? Denial, grieving, and then whatever, finally acceptance. So throughout the process, the songs kind of become more and more empowering, and you're able to take the time to view, okay, that was his side, this is my side, these are the little details in between. Because sometimes when I'm in the studio with other co-writers, they ask me questions and they challenge me, and we end up talking about exactly what happened, and they give me their perspective. So when I tell you I've talked this thing to death, I've sung this breakup to death, it would be an understatement. I still have a lot in me too.
Are there any lyrics that you've written either about that specific breakup or just other life circumstances that you feel kind of encapsulate the experience, or like once you've processed it, like you said, through the lyrics, it kind of helps you have some realizations? Is there anything that comes to mind from any of your songs, even just like a line or two?
I've written so many moments of gold, I would say. But, you know, one specific that I really like, it's a song that I'm working on called Honest. And basically the song is about how, you know, when you go through a breakup, everyone is just kind of like, yeah, you know, but don't wish him ill. Just kind of wish him well and be on the way. And I've even had people telling me to, like, pray for him. When I tell you I've heard it all, I've heard it all. But through the resentment phase, one of the lines I wrote is, if you want the honest version, I want to see you hurting. I want I want to break your heart right back. It's basically saying the things that other people feel and are afraid to say. Let's say through an experience like a breakup, we always want to come off as the bigger person, like, yeah, I'm doing fine, it's cool, like, it's not a big deal. When really how we feel is, I'm actually not that great. I kind of hate him, and this kind of sucks.
That's somewhere in the between the anger and acceptance phase of the stages of grief, like you were saying.
Right, exactly.
Maria, what advice would you give to other millennials who are on a journey toward fulfillment and success?
One thing, which is very important, probably the most important, is that you have to know going into this that there will be obstacles, there will be struggles, there will be problems. That's just the reality of it. I think that everyone begins the journey so optimistically, but the hardest part is like the last 10%, right? That's what they say in any project. It's easy to think about an idea and to become enthusiastic, but you're going to lose that enthusiasm halfway. So you just have to go into any situation knowing that if you want to achieve something on a higher level, if you want to become successful, you really, really just have to know that it's not going to be easy, but that's okay. Just always find a way to find a solution.
That was actually great advice, first of all. And secondly, the motivation for creating Motivational Millennial, when Ivy and I were working on projects, and there was this realization that so often in our generation we're told, follow your dreams, go for your passions, but they don't say, to your point, and it's going to be really hard.
It's going to be really hard, right? I know every day I tell myself, why didn't they teach this in school? Like, everything is just butterflies and rainbows. Like, yes, you guys are awesome. Go for it. You're the best. But really, we aren't taught that, you know what, this is going to be grueling. You're going to have hours and hours of time probably alone, and time that you're going to have to spend making the decision, you know, do I want to stay home and work on this, or go out with my friends, for example, or am I going to begin this project and stop halfway because it gets hard? No, you can't do any of that. You just have to find a solution for every single problem, commit, and see the end. You just have to see it out. And I think that a lot of people, maybe in this generation as well, have a very difficult time seeing things out, whether it comes to relationships, whether it comes to projects, whether it comes to cooking. They'd rather microwave something than take the time to just throw 3 ingredients together. You know, we're kind of in this generation of that satisfaction that needs to be delivered now, without the struggle. But the struggle is what makes it so great. And in fact, going back to even just the end of a relationship, when I was hurt, I had so many of my friends, you know, telling me it's going to be okay and whatever. But I had one friend in specifically tell me, you know what? You're so lucky to feel this. This is so beautiful. Just take the time and realize that your heart is breaking. And it's a beautiful emotion because it's not every day that you experience this. And these are the type of emotions that create the strength within us, create our character, develop us as individuals. Any type of struggle, it develops us. And I think a lot of times maybe people are afraid of that. They're afraid to feel pain when in fact pain is the greatest thing that they could ever feel.
That's such a wonderful outlook to have, because I think you're right. Sometimes when we start on a path and it starts to become challenging, which it will, as we're all sort of discussing that it will, we might take that as a sign that we're on the wrong path. Because subconsciously there's this assumption, as we were saying, often for many of us raised in this generation, that it's going to be easy and that we're really good at it. So if we hit struggle, it seems like, or it can feel like that is a signal that you're doing something wrong, or that really isn't what you want to be doing, or maybe this isn't meant for me. And so then the path is switched. So it's just sort of perpetually getting the initial burst of energy and excitement around a project or a trajectory without ever getting the satisfaction of completing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've heard that exact statement from so many people out here. And, even in relationships too, it's like we have this idea that if it doesn't flow naturally, then it's wrong, which in some cases could be true. But for the most part, and specifically in finding success with a career, that's not the case. Because like we said, if it were easy, everyone would do it. It's like people work really, really hard. You're not going to become a millionaire overnight.
Mm-mm.
You really have to go through a lot of pain and a lot of struggle to get somewhere that is worthwhile.
Yeah.
So,
and I think sometimes we cause ourselves infinitely more pain by trying to avoid the one small piece of pain than if we had just accepted that this moment is going to be uncomfortable and push through it. Because I think so much of procrastination, especially, is looking at the thing that in some way feels or we think will be painful, and then doing all these other things to not do that one thing, but in the process causes us so much more stress or frustration or anxiety or whatever, when if we had just focused on doing the one thing that we were afraid of, it would have been over, and who knows, maybe actually would have been fun once we got into it.
Exactly, and you have to take one step at a time. It's like, even, let's say if I'm planning a music video, the idea of it is so great, but in the process, when you're dealing with so many different people, I'm not a very good planner, okay? Like, when it's my birthday or whatever, I get a little anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I want to do. I can't go to a place that makes everybody happy. What makes me happy? I just don't know. And that's kind of something that I've had to learn through this process as well, through my growth, is that every decision doesn't have to be the right decision, because it's not going to be the right decision. You really just have to make a decision because you're still maintaining momentum. You're going somewhere. And you just have to commit. That's it. You have to commit, whether it's right or wrong. Whether I pick, and I have a problem with this, by the way, picking the orange or the blue jacket. It's the same jacket. I get so stressed out, you guys. But I think that those little moments, they define such a bigger problem. It's like, at the end, it doesn't really matter. Go with your gut, your initial instinct, and that's it. Keep going. If it's wrong, it's wrong. That's it. It's wrong. I mean, it's going to be wrong, but every wrong decision still leads you to the right path. That's my belief. Like, no matter what, I am a firm believer that truly what is meant to be will be, but you just have to keep walking. I
like that. Every wrong decision leads you to the right path.
Yeah, because at least you're continuing and keeping that momentum going.
Exactly. And one more thing that I would say, piece of advice, is that throughout the journey, there are so many ups and downs, and there's so many, highs and lows, but I think that it's important for people to have something that will always keep them balanced. And for me, that's spirituality. For me, that's God. He's the only thing that brings peace in my life, whether, I have the highest moment or the lowest of lows, because I think that's why a lot of people go through depression, or they get anxiety, or they have all these different issues, because they're kind of seeking things outside of themselves. And so I think you need something that's balanced, because, even if you put all of your love and attention on your family, like, your family's not always going to be there. I suggest, if you're not fully spiritual, like meditation, something. You need something to connect with yourself every day.
I love that. I think that's really important too, when we can feel perpetually unhappy in a hyper-capitalist society too, because it's always, you just need one more new experience or one new thing or one new person, and that's what's going to make you truly happy. That's what's going to make you successful. But as you're highlighting, if you can't find that happiness within, or with a connection, to a higher power, then ultimately you're going to keep searching forever, and your whole life is going to be the struggle.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle. And I see that within myself too. It's like every little achievement that comes into my life, I do find myself always wanting more, and I do find myself always craving a higher level. And that's okay. That's normal. And I love that competitive nature within me. But I think it's really important to also be thankful, gracious, have acceptance of everything. I like to wake up every day and I'm sure, you've heard this from a lot of people, is, saying 5 things you're thankful for, whatever. It might come off corny to a lot of people. It really does help. It really is a mindset. You have to continuously live in a state of thankfulness and a state of, I am exactly where I need to be. I am okay with everything in my life. Because, like you said, we're always craving more, or we always feel like we aren't doing the best. But the truth is, we're doing exactly what we're meant to be doing in the moment. We're doing our very best in the moment. And that's what I tell myself too, like if things go wrong in my life, whether it's a relationship or whether it's with a song or whatnot, you have to really have that patience with yourself and that leeway to kind of just say, you know what, it's okay. Because I'm very hard on myself. Like everybody tells me I'm probably the worst. But you have to tell yourself, I did the very best that I could in this exact moment. I used all of the knowledge, all of the experience, all of the skill that I have for this exact moment. If that's not enough, then that's okay. I'm just not there yet.
I love the self-compassion that's there, just in everything that you said. And also would love to hear a book or a quote that changed your life in some way.
I am a quote hoarder, so I absolutely love reading and finding new information. So I don't know if there's one in particular. I will say, this is dating back to some of my younger years, I had to move schools. I grew up in one specific school where I had all my best friends, and I was pretty successful for, the age where I was. I was playing sports at a varsity level, and I was class president and whatnot. So when my parents moved me to another school, it was very difficult for me in the beginning because, I found my identity through those things. But I did read the book, which I'm sure you guys have heard of, or maybe even read, Who Moved My Cheese. Have you read that?
I've not read that, but we were actually just talking.
Yeah, we've been talking about it and how we need to order it and read it.
Yep.
So funny.
Really?
Yes.
So, you know what? I can't even remember who gave it to me. Maybe my dad gave it to me. I honestly can't remember how I got a hold of it. But during that time, the book just found its way into my life. And essentially what the book is about is being okay with change and realizing that it's necessary for life. It's kind of a story about, I think it's a story about some mice, and the mice each have their own perspective as to the changes that are occurring around them. Something like that. It's really good. You guys have to read it.
Yes.
But I just remember it really impacting me because I was stuck in this mindset, where I allowed outside influences and outside sources to really identify who I was as a person. And I was stuck to that forever. It's like, girl, you're not going to be class president your whole life. What are you going to run for president of the United States next? We forget these things. We truly hold on to things that we think are great with a tight grip, when in reality, we just have to have our hands open and allow things to come in and come out. So, yeah, I totally recommend reading that book. It kind of changed me, and I just saw everything from a new perspective, and I was able to just be cool in my new school, and I met my best friends, and I kind of was in this new level of my life. And that's when I started seeing life as chapters and levels. And, I think that a lot of times we forget that we are constantly shedding our skin, and that's what's necessary. I look forward to that. Every year I look forward to, okay, how am I going to grow next? How am I going to be different? Nobody wants to stay the same. That's not fun.
Well, we definitely believe that here at Motivational Millennial as well.
Yeah. Right?
Well, it's been so wonderful having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. Would you share with the audience where they can find you and your work online?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed speaking to you guys. I'm everywhere on the interweb, of course. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Snapchat. I think the social networks I use the most at the moment probably are Instagram and Snapchat, maybe. My name is Maria Z. So if they look up Maria Z, they can find that. Username Maria Zarudis. But yeah, I would say follow me on Instagram, Maria Zarudis, and look out for my music also on YouTube, if you just look up Maria Z. And on SoundCloud, I'm so excited to be wrapping up these couple tracks that mean so much to me, and to just really connect through my music with everyone. So yeah, I really hope everyone can just follow along for the journey.
I'm a huge fan of your music as well, and I would definitely co-sign that. Check out Maria online, and we'll follow up with you in a second. Maybe we can play one of your tracks as the outro or something here. We'll talk about that in a moment. But
oh, that would be fun.
Yeah. Well, Maria, thanks again for talking with us today.
It's been great. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys. Have a great day.
At night, I think of you. Your game is on, give me a call. If your love is strong, wanna give my heart. These feelings I have for you can go deeper if you can come correct with your game, boy. No, you can be lame, boy. But if you can please me, then my love will come easy. I'll do anything that you want, boy. I'm thinking of you at night. I think of you. I want to be your lady. If your game is on, give me a call. If your love is strong, wanna give my all. At night I think of you. I want to be your lady. If your game is on, give me a call. If your love is strong, wanna give mine. Every night I say my prayers, 'cause Lord knows I've shed some tears on the wrong ones, but I keep calm, imagining you next to me. On my mind incessantly, yeah, over and over. You got me running this over. Don't need to think, 'cause I'm tripping just from the thought of us. Boy, listen.
The Motivational Millennial podcast is supported by Motivational Millennial Coaching Services. We help you find clarity and confidence so you can take action toward living your dream life. To learn more about one-on-one personalized support from someone who believes you have a path to fulfillment and wants to help you uncover it, visit www.motivationalmillennial.com/coaching. Hello, and welcome to the after show for our conversation with Maria Z. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
She's just so sweet. What a great conversation.
And you also just heard her awesome rendition of My Boo, which is famous for reigniting the Running Man challenge across the interwebs, but I like Maria's spin on it. She's really got some crazy runs. That's awesome.
That was great. I've been thinking a bit on what Maria was saying when she spoke about having a shift in what you think is possible, and once that change happens in your mind, there's no going back, really. Because you see the possibilities. You see that this can happen. And I was thinking a little bit about how there's often a shift in identity that occurs when what we think is possible changes. Because we have ourselves oftentimes in a bit of a box. Because we have created a construct that is us. I am Ivy. I am from Kansas. I have these parents. I was raised in this way. I have this potential and these talents and all of these things. And there is a part of us that gets kind of attached to that identity that we've created for ourselves.
The story of you. The
story of you've created in your mind. And what she's speaking to is when a shift occurs that's so dramatic that what you see or the story that you've created shifts. You see that there are actually multiple endings to your story. Mm-hmm. And then there's a bit of a change in identity. And in a way, this is what we talk about a lot with Motivational Millennial. We're talking a lot about paradigm shifts and how you become aware of what you're thinking and choose an empowering story. But what we don't always talk about is that when you do that, and you are fortunate enough to have one of those shifts and transformations that you won't ever go back from, there can be a bit of grieving, actually. And I think very healthily, there's a bit of grieving of the old self, of this person that you became so attached to being, and the types of friends that you thought you were going to have. I mean, because sometimes these shifts can totally change who you are going to spend your time around, the direction of your entire life, right? So while there is some focus on what you're creating, which is a really great place to put your focus, there's also some real wisdom in allowing yourself to grieve what you are losing, the life that you thought you were going to have, even if it wasn't, if that makes sense. You know, that's what change also results in, is some loss as well.
And I think that's why that change is so hard to make happen, because there's the fear of that. Think of it when you, even just a basic change, like I'm going to get up and run first thing in the morning. Our mind says, oh, but my identity is going to have to change because now I have to get my shoes out. It starts going immediately to all the things that have to change that are unpleasant, you know, and then I'm going to be sweaty first thing in the morning. I like to sit in the shower, and I like to have my coffee so I can relax before I run. And, you know,
or it's thinking that when you say identity, I mean, my brain's not likely to be like, my identity, but it's like, I'm going to have to become a runner now, like forever. Right. And all of the, to your point, things that are going to come with that.
Well, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the change of any sort, even most basic habit-based change, is really hard because we think the world is going to have to be different and perhaps much more uncomfortable than the world we have known currently, even if the world we are living in currently and the way we're behaving currently isn't helping us get the ultimate outcomes we want. And so when you're talking about a paradigm shift in your life, changing dramatically the person you feel like you are or who you want to be, then holy cow, that's frightening. So like you said, you know, what if your family doesn't still like you? What if your friends no longer respect you or want to hang out with you, or you don't want to hang out with them? You're going to be all alone. I mean, you know, your brain can immediately trace it to like solitary death. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's why it's really good to acknowledge that that's part of what's happening. Mm-hmm. We emphasize the awesomeness. And when I say awesome in this sense, I mean it's immense and amazing and beautiful, not just awesome, man.
And do you mean we as in Motivational Millennial?
I mean we as in Motivational Millennial, yeah. We emphasize the awesomeness of change and transformation and how incredibly beautiful and impactful it is. And how necessary it is to achieve any of your dreams. But also, the flip side of that, of change and transformation, is loss. Anytime there is some kind of change in your life, something new that's happening, there's a change of seasons. And, you know, we aren't necessarily as accustomed to the changes of seasons here in the Bay Area when it's just like 70 degrees all the time. Or because now we, in a very, I don't know, sort of large meta view, because we as humans have electricity, like we can make it daytime anytime we want, nighttime anytime we want. Like we're not as in tuned with the seasons as we once were. But change is like a very natural, normal thing. And part of all the good things that come are loss. And so that's one thing that we don't always talk a lot about, I would say.
Oh, yeah. And I think you, at least, I think you are better at dealing with change or initiating change than I am, certainly. Like, I never want to move from a place. Like, you know, like an apartment. If I'm in an apartment, like in New York, for example, you know, I was like, this Park Slope place is fantastic, and I'm going to be here forever, even though the rent is going up exorbitantly every year. And then, you know, we moved to Sunset Park, and I was like, oh my gosh, this place is amazing. It's a duplex. Our landlords are awesome. It's got great access to subway lines. I'm going to live here forever. And then it's like, just kidding, going to the San Francisco Bay Area. Oh my gosh. Terrible. You know, but now it's like, living in Berkeley. Oh yeah, the seas, it's perpetually 70 degrees in paradise. Like I never want to leave. So all I'd say, I think you have demonstrated, well, and I don't want to assume it's it's obviously not easy for you, but I think you seek out transformation and personal growth in a way that is really remarkable and rare, I would say.
Well, I appreciate you so much affirming that. And I think there's definitely some truth in that. Like, I definitely think that I'm drawn to growth and change and challenges. But sometimes I actually find myself, because I have a tendency to move pretty quickly in that realm, that sometimes I'm like, why can't I just stay settled, like, in one, like, space for, like I shift paradigms very regularly, like, every month or two. Like, my close friends, like, if we don't talk for, like, 4 months, it's like, you're kind of a different person, I say a bit. And actually, I think that it's so funny, I'm having this realization as we're talking. I wonder how much I ever spend grieving what I've lost. Like, I'm so used to change, and I'm so used to growing, and unless it's like a huge thing, like when my husband and I separated and divorced, like, there was obviously a huge change, like fundamental shifts. But like you said, I mean, I'm seeking out growing all the time. Like, how much am I actually stopping and releasing and having like a ceremony or something, like, around, like, this is old Ivy yesterday or 2 weeks ago. And maybe that contributes to some degree to how sometimes I feel like there isn't a foundation. Because I'm shifting so much, you know, like, that it's like...
Yeah, you haven't cleared the rubble underneath to sort of have the firm foundation.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, like, that's where, for me, spirituality is super important. Incredibly important, because I try to refocus on the core of me, on that is always going to be the same before and after and for all eternity. But if I'm in my mind too much, it's like, who am I now? Like, you know, and it can feel a little unnerving, for sure. I need to practice more recognition of loss and grief and changing. I don't know, have you ever experienced that? Like a sense of loss from moving forward towards something that you wanted.
Yeah, I think every major life transition has been part of that. Especially, I'm thinking of when I was finishing up my work in the music industry, there was a real uncertainty of what was coming next, and I knew I needed to finish my PhD. That was the most urgent thing on the to-do list. But I had started volunteering with the nonprofit that I ended up working with for a number of years, which is where Ivy and I met.
Woo!
Yeah, go Champions. But during that time frame, there was definitely this sense of something I had loved and really invested a lot of myself and time and energy and money into, which was the music industry project, was coming to a sort of abrupt end. And that space of uncertainty was definitely filled with a sense of grieving, I think, in part because I was leaving England, where I had some friends I really cared about, moving to New York, and the pathway was uncertain, except that by May 31st, I needed to send in my dissertation and an album. And I think I joke about the PhD, but in some ways, having some goal or focus in the future, I think can really help balance out that process of grieving. Because I think when your future is wide open, there's total uncertainty, that can be incredibly liberating and a creative space, or it can be incredibly frightening and really challenging to see where you should go next. So I don't have an easy answer, and I don't know if that really answered your question.
I mean, totally, and I appreciate you sharing that story and that perspective. It was something, I don't know, it's just an interesting way to think about things.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to talk about from the interview with Maria was when she was talking about how her breakup had fueled her songwriting process, and she said there were just so many different perspectives she could look at when she was writing her song, and it got me thinking, it's not really exactly where she was going with her point, but how great would it be if we could, in moments of conflict or dissonance with the people around us, either at work or in our personal lives, how great would it be if we could, before things explode into a crisis, really try to look from other people's perspectives and see, what must life be like for this person? Or how could they be looking at this situation? And sometimes the best way to find that out is to ask the person, just without judgment, without trying to defend anything. Like, say, for the next 5 minutes, I just am going to ask you questions and really try to understand your perspective. I'm not going to try to argue with you. I just want to understand truly where you're coming from. And I'll repeat things back to you to make sure I'm getting it right, and correct me if I'm not. I think helping people be heard sometimes can be one of the fastest ways to diffuse an argument or some kind of conflict. And it's a great exercise in empathy. And so Maria's kind of doing it through her songwriting. You know, she's imagining, what must this experience be like for the other person? But I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be awesome if we could more deliberately and consciously do that on a regular basis?
I really want to comment on this point, but I also want to say that I thought that you were going to say that wouldn't it be amazing if we could use all of our conflicts to fuel our creative endeavors and like inspire us to do art. Like every argument we had at work with this coworker, like you go home and you just create this huge mural or something, and it's like, that's what I thought. That'd be very
cathartic for people.
I definitely thought that's where you were going to go with
Hashtag art therapy.
It's so funny. Yeah, I think so often we feel like in those kinds of conversations or conflicts, I mean, we feel like we are right and they are wrong.
And our sense of identity is wrapped up in us being right.
Yes. And in reality, I mean, there kind of is no right or wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, can we have a conversation where the goal isn't to prove I'm right or to prove you're right, but the goal is to, like, to your point, understand each other, to come to some, maybe not necessarily an agreement, but common understanding. I mean, that's the goal. That means we win, you know?
Yeah, and we have to be the ones to initiate that. I mean, there's so often this thing like, if they only asked me what I thought, or if they only cared, it's like you have to be the person to start. And the thing is, it may still not work. I don't want this to sound like it's some magical panacea, because the reality is you could do that and you could still have a fundamental disagreement with this other person, or they may have other intentions. But I always believe, at least give them a chance. Like, at least try to have that conversation, because you know what? You can always take the hard line later. You can always say, you know what? We're just not going to deal with each other anymore. We're not going to talk to each other. Or, you know, if you have to take legal action, like, okay, whatever. You know, you can always escalate it down the line. But I think some people think, I have to come out of the gates like guns blazing. It's like, could you come out the gates having a conversation? Like, do you have to immediately go on the offensive? Because if you attack somebody, they're going to respond in a defensive position. And often, subconsciously, I feel like we're counting on that. See, they yelled at me back. Now that proves my point that they're irrational or whatever. So I'm not trying to take this into the realm of politics, which I feel has escalated into that.
Well, I think
recently, especially.
Yeah, and I think that if we think of the goal being to strengthen the relationship, I don't think that's typically our first thought or our first focus with other people. Like, we're thinking, again, because we're trying to protect our identity around it. To speak of identity again, the heart of what's most important, at least in my opinion, is the relationship and improving the relationship. And if that person is not open or willing, you know, that's totally their prerogative and fine. But whether it's a coworker or your partner or a roommate or whoever it is that you are talking about, if you are so focused on being right, more focused than you are on preserving the health of the relationship, then that's what you're going to get. I mean, that priority is going to show over time.
And one helpful way I've heard recently is that every action people take is either an act of love or a cry for help. And that has really helped me have compassion when people are, I feel, being irrational or unreasonable or difficult, because rather than looking at that as they are trying to hurt me intentionally, I am able to feel much more powerful looking at that is a cry for help. They're not feeling like they're being heard or their needs are being met or they're being loved enough or they have a lot of fear around something. And that doesn't mean we have to agree with them. It doesn't mean I have to give in to them, whatever they're demanding. It just puts me in a position of power versus feeling helpless or victimized. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I can say that one of the things that I really appreciate about working with you is your willingness to have conversations. I mean, that's incredibly important in our business partnership because we have to make a lot of big decisions together. So I really can attest to that skill that you have and how incredibly important it is to be able to communicate honestly with the goal of, is this conversation in service of strengthening the relationship rather than who's going to be right. And if we come into it, we're like, we really care about our vision. What is the best decision for Motivational Millennial?
Yeah, well, and I appreciate your leadership and guidance in that area too, because I think I had not really thought about having conversations that intentionally about the direction and how we were feeling about the direction of everything, because I think in my mind that didn't ever matter. You know what I mean? It's just like, it was like, look, this is a business decision. Like, why does the way we feel about it? But what you so intuitively, I think, identified and then you so clearly articulated was actually the way we feel about the stuff is the most important thing. Because if we don't talk about that, then we're going to be making assumptions or making decisions that we might not really want to make, but because we're not expressing that, all this resentment can build or cross purposes or confusion. And so I just really want to applaud you for leading that communication.
Well, we had a shift really recently, actually, where we talked about making decisions for the company from a place of power rather than a place of fear. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's exactly what you're talking about, is when we talk about how are we feeling about where we are, what's happening, what's coming down the pipeline, then we can release any kind of stress or anxiety or fear that we're having around it. And then we can move from the place of power.
I like it.
High five!
High five. Awesome.
This is a great conversation.
Fantastic.
I hope you all have enjoyed this.
Yeah, thanks for letting us delve deep here. And Maria, thank you for giving us such great material to work with and inspiration. And we really appreciate you, our wonderful listeners, for tuning in every week. We hope to catch up with you again next week. And we wish you all the best, Motivational Millennial Podcast listeners.
Woohoo!
For show notes and upcoming guests, or to learn more about Coactive Coaching, the blog, and our other awesome offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Christy Hostler and Team Podcast.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Blake Brandis. Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!